Hey everyone, this is episode 1 Elite Leadership, and this is a really big topic. There's so much on leadership in general. All I'm going to offer you here is my perspective, and this centers around just some mindsets and capabilities that I think are really important to have as fundamentals, whether you're in a leadership position or you're about to be in one or you're going to transition careers. I think these things apply no matter what field you're in, but if you want to learn them now, depending on the role, it's always going to be a skill that is going to come in handy later in life. So I'll be covering that now, mindsets, capabilities around elite leadership. Come join me. Welcome to the Mark Wales podcast. I'm Mark Wales, an ex-special operations major, now award-winning entrepreneur, best-selling author, and two-time Survivor player. Since I was 12 years old, I wanted to join the SAS. And in the 30 years since, I've worked in elite teams on battlefields, in academics, and on TV. If you're interested in what makes an elite team and how you can improve your own leadership skills, then stand by. Hey everyone, how you doing? I'm talking all things elite leadership today. So I've thought a lot about this topic. I think I didn't fully grasp what the fundamentals of leadership were until I'd been in the position a lot longer and had seen the mistakes and reflected on the things that I'd done well or done wrong. But I have a couple of different angles on this. One comes predominantly from the military, like how the military thinks about small unit leadership. And the other one comes from the corporate sector, and they're both closely aligned. But really for me, there's only a couple of categories that really matter when I think about this. And this is important, I think, no matter what position you're in life, whether you're new to a job, whether you're transitioning to a new role that might involve leadership or leading a project. I think they're just critical mindsets to have and capabilities in place before you go any further into things. So I'll talk about them briefly here, but one of the first thing, and I'm going to talk about three things. The first thing I think that is most important is having a leadership mindset that is prioritizing your thinking in the right areas. And I think there's three parts to it. First part is the mission has to come first, always. Mission always comes first. Second part is the team comes second. You've got to look after your team. And then thirdly, you as the individual, you as the leader, you come third. So with the mission, this is such an important part to make sure you have right, because if you don't get this fundamental single sentence part correct, everything else that follows won't matter. So with missions, in the military, we just have a really simple, clear way of doing things. We talk about what we're going to do, how we're going to do it, when we're going to have it done by, and most importantly, why we're doing it. And that was often just a one sentence paragraph. I'll give you an example. We're going to clear this valley here by nightfall tomorrow night so that we can move a brigade reserve in here and strategically control this area for the rest of the campaign. So this is quite a really straightforward thing, but it's funny how many organizations have a different understanding of what their mission is. And when this happens, you get organizations, people paddling in the wrong direction. So it really doesn't work. And I think if you look at the Afghanistan campaign as a whole, as we went further on into it, the mission just got more and more confused, right? And then you start getting really inefficient use of effort. So clarity around the problem and what problem you're trying to solve, and then that mission statement that solves that problem. In any job, this is really important, and not just saying it once, but reiterating it with the voice, in writing, no matter how you do it, having a really clear understanding of what that mission is, because then no matter how much friction there is, you can all head towards that one goal. So important. So really be clear on what your mission is and what you're trying to solve. With the team, you've got to prioritize your team. So always think about what your team needs and how you can support them. As a leader, this doesn't mean delivering inspiring speeches. Like, often it's not that at all. They want you to get out of the way and enable them so they can do their job. So assist with clearing obstacles, assist with putting processes in place, make sure they've got the resources they need to achieve their mission, keep them accountable, help them with problem solving all the time. All these things contribute to progress, right? And a good leader has that balance of push and pull. They inspire people to do things and then they pull them along with process and so on. So trying to get that balance right is really important. You can't just have it one way. You can't just be forcing people into the action yourself. You've actually got to get in the trenches with them and problem solve so people can move forward. Just brushing my notes. I took notes. That's the sort of professionalism you can expect in this podcast. And the final bit there under mindset was self. So mission, team, and then you. So you as a leader, it's very easy to burn yourself out if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. You can sprint hard and do long hours and kind of neglect yourself a little bit if you need to, but you're in deficit and you can't do it forever. It will lead to burnout, and that's a really common problem. I've had it myself when I was in the military. I was working too hard for too long, and I've seen it a lot in the corporate sector. And I think the onset of smart devices, mobile phones, commuting, all these things are burning people out. There's a lot of evidence for it. There's a lot of quantitative evidence about the cost to businesses. And the worst thing of all is your work ends up taking your life. So instead of your family or your partner getting the best of you, your workplace is just taking everything. So my point is here is you've really got to protect yourself well, and you've got to have the right processes in place to make sure you're in good shape. And for me, it really centers on, so that self-care is a really important part of just making sure you've got the whole thing ready. But that priority list, which is the mission first, then team, then you as the individual, that's going to be the hardest thing. So try and stay on top of that as a mindset in general. So the second part is the principles that go behind planning. And again, just a handful I focus on here. One is you want to keep your plans as simple as possible. And the reason you want to keep them simple is because it's easier for people to follow. It's easier to execute. And often, say for example, in military planning, we might just pan things out in 3 phases. We talk about how we're going to get to the target. We talk about what we're going to do when we get there. And the final phase might be how we get out. And then we would go into a lot of detail about all the things we could control. And we'd map them right out into the finest detail you could. Then there'd be all these other scenarios that we'd have that the enemy would interfere with. And for that, we'd come up with the contingency planning. So we talk about, all right, what happens here if the enemy interferes with this? We go through all these different scenarios, and it helps us pass out the things we can control and the things we can't. Worry a lot about the things you can control. Consider the things you can't control, but don't waste too much energy on them, is what I'm saying. So keep things really simple. You're not offending people's sensibilities if you give them a simple plan. It actually takes more sophistication to simplify thinking and to simplify planning. So take the time, polish your plans up, make sure they're straightforward and clear and easy to understand, and you'll get better execution on them. So simplicity is one. The other one is focus. So in today's world, it's so easy to get distracted by multiple things. Really try and concentrate all your efforts, your resources, your firepower on just that one objective. And it's got to be related to your mission. So you've set your mission, you've set your steps for how you want to get there. Keep all your focus on those steps, because if you achieve them, if you achieve those milestones, you will have mission success. I think it's so easy to add all extra nebulous stuff into your to-do list, into your day-to-day life. Try and ignore it. Classic case of noise and signal, right? Try and find that signal in all the noise that will support what your mission is. Because if you're moving in that direction, then that's good progress. It's just so easy to get sidetracked. So concentrate all your focus, all your efforts, all your firepower, whatever it is, just on one target. Don't spread yourself too thin, because it's harder to achieve success. Another one is attitude to failure. So how you think about failure as a team and how you approach it is an important part of growth. And I think Charles Darwin said it. He doesn't matter, strongest or smartest, does not matter. What matters for survival is how willing to adapt that you are. And I mangled that quote, but basically what he was saying is your willingness and your ability to adapt is what will determine whether you succeed in life or live or not. So for me, that ability to adapt relates to responding to your environment, and failure is a big part of it. If you do a task and it fails, you better reflect on it. You better analyze it. You better understand why it happened and see it as the opportunity that it is. So it's a learning opportunity, and it's not a chance to recriminate or blame or kind of think below the line. You think above the line, think opportunities, problem solving, a chance to make things better, a chance to do it better the second time. That to me is what failure is. And I've had this, it's been horrible. I've had some horrible failures, really humiliating ones. But the fact that I kept chipping away at it after learning from those failures, that's what got me over the line in the end, whether it was doing selection or trying to get into business school. So good, healthy approach to failure. After action reviews is one. Pre-mortems, we call them wargaming in the military. In the business, they call them pre-mortems, but it's basically stress testing your plans, figuring out how they fail, figuring out what changes you need to make based on that. That makes resilient plans, right? So I have those processes. I talk about them in much more detail on my online course portal, which is mark.wales/courses. Actually, it's not. It's mark.courses. That's it. I found that URL, amazing URL, mark.courses. So I bought it, and that's got all my online courses on it. But I definitely go into more detail on those processes in there. So check it out. And so they're the two buckets. I talked about mindset first, mission, team, self. I've talked about planning principles next, which was simplicity, focus, and an attitude to failure. And the final bit, which I kind of touched on in the first point, but I'm going to talk about more now, and that's self-care. So when I returned from, I think it was my first tour in Afghanistan, it was 2007. I'd been on a heap of tours before then to East Timor and training, and I was approaching burnout before I even left. I didn't realize it, but I was. And after 6 months of fighting and combat, and we had a fatality and more guys wounded, and it was high stress, and by the end I was a wreck. I was an absolute wreck. And when I came back from that, I was in such bad shape. I couldn't concentrate for any more than 5-10 minutes at a time. Didn't want to socialize. I was socially withdrawn. Some of that was trauma related. It was actually post-traumatic stress disorder, but a good portion of it was related to burnout and overwork. So this is a real risk, and this is becoming more and more common in today's workplace. The problem is your body responds the same, whether it's in combat or whether you're in a high stress situation in the workplace. It's all fight and flight responses, heightened emotional states, adrenaline, all these cortisol, all these things make your body respond in similar ways. So you can dampen your responses to that by taking care of yourself. You can protect yourself by getting the fundamentals of self-care right. And I went to a neuroscientist actually once I knew I was, totally burnt out. And he had some really good insights. He goes, look, your brain has been overusing a really ancient part of your mind called the amygdala. It controls all your fight and flight mechanisms. In the meantime, you've benched the more advanced parts of your brain, your prefrontal cortex, that controls all your executive functionings, logic, empathy, reasoning, decision-making. All that's been benched at the moment. He goes, you're more lizard than you are human. And I was like, I licked my eyeballs and said, that's not true. But he explained all it to me, and it started to make sense. He goes, look, we're going to rebalance your mind. We're going to start with these really straightforward principles. We're going to get you eating better. We're going to get you exercising, and we're going to make sure you get rest. And he explained each one in more detail. He's like, look, with your exercise, get about 120 minutes a week. Keep it vigorous, fairly high intensity, conditioning, weightlifting, whatever you want. I was like, okay. So I listened to him, and I did CrossFit and I did surfing. And they were skills-based exercises as well. Like I didn't really know how to surf. So that extra kind of mental effort behind developing a skill, that was really important. And that helped improve my mental health and fitness by a long way. With diet, he goes, look, we're going to clean your eating up. So we're going to reduce your alcohol intake. We're going to get you some really healthy greens and lean meats and all those good things. Again, that's going to dampen the symptoms of your depression. It's going to improve your mood. And I was kind of skeptical, but I started following that, cleaning my diet up, and that really made a big difference too. And he said, with rest, sleep is so important for healing your brain, for memory retention, for so many of those things. So you're going to get 7 to 9 hours sleep a night, no questions asked. And to do it, we're going to have this bedtime routine where you're going to have some breathing exercises, and you're going to read a book, and you're going to calm your central nervous system down so that you're ready to sleep. That is your off-ramp for the day, for your mind. It's going to calm you down, and you're going to get the right amount of sleep, and that's going to help you repair. And so I started doing what this guy said. day by day, week by week, I was taking these little steps. And this isn't rocket science. It's really basic stuff, but it is hard to do it consistently. And the improvements in my mental health and physical health were dramatic. Week by week, it improved. It improved so much I was able to go back and I think I did 3 more tours of Afghanistan after. I did a few other minor tours, like I was in Lebanon for a bit. But yeah, I credit that guy to saving me, because the direction I was headed in was straight down. I was in terrible shape. But this guy pulled me out of it, gave me some routine, gave me some ways to fix myself, and it took work. It took a lot of hard work. And I think a lot of people, especially if you're coming out of elite sports or the military or a changing career, people have this issue. They miss the support unit. They miss the adventure, the adrenaline of it. And it's quite hard to go back to normal life and just, sail off into the sunset. It's very hard to do that. So I recommend to anyone, if you're in that situation, you need to make that mental choice that you're going to look after your own health, and you're going to make steps forward that is going to make you a better person in the future, I think. And that was the hardest part for me, was making that decision to improve my health and to stick at it consistently. So that got me through. And look, they're the 3 things. So we've talked about mindset, mission, team, self. Talked about planning principles, simplicity, focus, working on failure. And then finally, I've talked about that self-care part. So when you're a leader, you are going to be working hard. You're going to have more effort, more worry, more things to consider than ever. And you're likely to neglect yourself. That's just human nature. So stay on top of that self-care, and that will keep you at your best. And it's not just about being good for the workplace. Like I said, this is about doing more with the time you've got, so you can have more of the things in life that you want, whether it's time with family, time with friends, being present in life. I know that when I'm burned out, I'm just in zombie-like mode, and I spend all weekend trying to recover my state of mind, only to go back into the fray again on Monday. You don't want to be like that. You want to look after yourself, set those boundaries every day, try and take care of yourself, invest in yourself, and that little bit of effort will go such a long way to making you feel better. Yeah, but that's my sermon on, I think, the fundamentals of elite leadership. I'll go into much more detail on this as we go along. That's just a little intro for you. Thanks for joining. See you soon. Thanks for listening. If you want to hear more, go to markwales.com.au. I have online course materials and all my outreach channels in just the one spot. And if you want to help in any way, please leave a strong review on Apple Podcasts. That helps me climb the ranks and reach more people. See you out there.